We're back, ladies and gentlemen. It's Saturday, May 10th, 2025. We are officially 4 days out from the 2025 NFL schedule release. I'm Andrew Duhan. Joined alongside me is my electric co-host. Some of you know him as J Ben, former radio host at 92.9, The Game in Atlanta, Falcons insider, professor, coach, Jeff Benedict. Find him on X at JBen_flightpath. Check out the banner behind him. He's even got the shirt too. We got our merch rolling. I love this. You can talk your shit to him, but please do not complain and play victim when he claps back. If you can't take the heat, stay the fuck out of his mentions. As always, packed agenda. Before we dive in, I want to thank all of you for subscribing. We had a pretty big week last week. It was really cool to see all of you guys view our videos, see our shorts. We only go as far as you guys take us. You stop watching, we stop recording. It's just that simple. Again, this is the 8th Flight Path episode. I'm really excited, so buckle up and enjoy the ride. So, packed agenda as always. Shortly after we recorded last week's episode, Jeff, offensive coordinator for the Falcons, Zach Robinson, came out and said that I'm expecting Kyle Pitts to take a big jump. Just as a reminder to everybody, Kyle Pitts was the first draft pick for this new regime. He was taken 4th overall in 2021. We passed up on players such as Jamar Chase, Penei Sewell, Pat Surtain, and Micah Parsons to take a tight end 4th overall. At the time, he was electric. We had Matt Ryan. So maybe the pick was a little more justified than us looking back 4 years later. But in his rookie season with Matt, he was the first tight end as a rookie to breach 1,000 yards since Mike Ditka. Ditka's record was then breached by Bowers this past year. He's had moments, right, Jeff? And you even bring it up. Weeks 5 through 8 this past year, he was averaging, I believe, 78.5 yards. He had 5 catches. I think he had 2 touchdowns in that span. You extrapolate those numbers and it's all pro. Jeff, is he finally going to take the big leap we're all waiting for?
I think that's up to him, right? Like, I'm really tired of people blaming quarterbacks. And I know the quarterbacks there haven't been all that great. You know, I know I took some heat last week because I talked about trading him. Because ultimately, to me, if he does take that next step, right, if he finally lives up to being that type of tight end we hoped he could be, you're not bringing him back anyway, except for what, maybe a year? Like maybe you franchise tag him, and then you're still going to pay him, what is that, 14, 15 million if you do franchise tag him. But then he's still, the next year, you're not going to tag him twice, and he's a non-quarterback, so you can't tag him 3 times anyway. So at best, you're going to get another 3 years out of him, and then he's going to walk, right? So if he does take the next step, and I hope he does, I really do. Like, I don't hate Kyle Pitts. I don't have this weird obsession with not wanting him here. For me, I'm just looking at it from a business decision, right? The business decision is, even if you're done tagging him once, maybe twice, and again, they're not going to tag him twice. Get that out. Go ahead and just get that out your mind now. You're not going to pay him what he's going to be worth on the open market if he does take that next step. So I think it's almost a catch-22 for the Falcons. You know, damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. But to me, you know, there have been teams that have inquired about his availability. There have been teams that would like to have him. Get rid of him while you can, and you know, let's get this thing going. But look, I hope he does take the next step. You know, I think it would be good for a guy like Michael Penix to have a tight end. You know, that can do some things, right? Because he can do some things. There's no doubt about that one, right? And so I wish that people would hold him accountable and stop blaming quarterbacks. Stop blaming, like, a quarterback doesn't give up on a route, right? A quarterback isn't dropping balls. And those are things that we have seen regardless of who's taking snaps under center for the Falcons. So, you know, I hope he does take the next step. You know, there are obviously seems like some really good things going here offensively. And you know, I think when you look at this roster top to bottom, this is a great roster to support him. But ultimately, it's going to be up to him. And so If he decides he finally wants to play football, he doesn't want to be the Vic Beasley of offense. Perfect, great. Like, I welcome it. But on the flip side, if that does happen, he won't be here long.
The part that gets me, Jeff, and we're talking about his money. For the past 5 years, like if you just look at the total cash paid out to tight ends from 2021 through 2025, what will ultimately be paid to Pitts this year, he ranks in the top 10, and his numbers are far from a top 10 tight end. Now we're getting into that situation that if this guy has an all-pro season, right, and 9 for whatever he did in those 3 games looks like the type of quarterback that can not only help Pitts get there, but also London too. So we have 2 weapons right there that could all of a sudden just shoot up in the ranks of the NFL and command huge contracts. They're both eligible. Well, obviously, we can sign Pitts after next year because he's going to be a free agent, but London's also eligible for an extension this year. So then it becomes a question like, how good, like, we can't keep everybody, right? Like, we can't keep Bijan, we can't pay London, we can't pay Pitt, and then we're also going to have to pay 9, hopefully, if he does well in the future. So you have to make a decision, and I think one of those 4, I mean, it's not going to be Penix, but one of those 3 weapons needs to go. You can't pay all 3, and I think Pitts is probably the odd man out in that situation.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point that not a lot of people are thinking about, right? And when you look at those 4 core guys, the ones that you just mentioned, Kyle Pitts is the odd man out. You're not going to let Bijan walk, right? I mean, if that dude keeps having, if he keeps showing what he's shown, he's on his way to a Hall of Fame career. You're not going to let him walk over keeping a tight end because at this point, Kyle Pitts hasn't shown you anything to be a Hall of Fame caliber type of talent, right? And Drake London showed last year at the end of the year when he and 9 were on the field together that was his dude. You're not letting him walk either. Right. And so when you look at that, he 100% is the odd man out. And then, even take it a year further, let's say things work out the way that we hope they do. Then you got to go pay JPJ and you got to go pay Walker, right? The very next year after you pay Penix, right? So like there's going to be some things that if you look forward and you look at the next 5 to 6 years, there's a lot of other dudes that you hope, and you have to use the word hope, work out far better than he does. And if that's the case, you're not paying him regardless. So, and I feel like we probably keep harping on, or I keep harping on this, right, of trading him. But I just feel like if there's teams that are willing to pay for him now or willing to give you something for him now, go ahead and get rid of him so that this offense can learn to function without him and be ready to go by the time the season kicks off.
And we'll dive into this more in the last segment of our show where we talk about the rumors, latest and greatest, like trades and free agency acquisitions. But one thing just popped in my head as you were talking about it. We've been talking about a lot how if a QB gets injured during the summer, people will come running to the Falcons to trade for Cousins. Can you see a similar situation happen with Pitts where, let's say Kelsey, he's not getting any younger. What if he goes down in camp, or another team that's really dependent on their tight end? If one of them goes down, can you see a situation where Pitts is the one that gets traded over the summer?
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I think if you come to the Falcons with the right numbers, right, when you come to them with the right draft picks, you're not going to say no. I mean, Terry Fontenot said last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, everybody, like we're looking at moves for everybody, not just the quarterback. So yeah, there's situations where I think you could see Tyler Algier be traded here in the next couple months. You can see Kyle Pitts be like. There's a lot of scenarios where a lot of different guys that our fan base may absolutely love, maybe traded, for the right price. And so I think there are a few core group of guys that are off limits, the ones that we've already mentioned, the Drake Londons, the Bijan Robinsons, Michael Penix. You look at the offensive line, you're not going to get rid of Chris Lindstrom. You're not going to get rid of Jake Matthews. But Bergeron, you trade him. Caleb McGarry, they'd be happy to get rid of him. You know what I mean? Like there's not a whole lot of guys on this roster that are untouchable for the right price. And so, there's probably, I would say 6 or 7 that are untouchable right now. But other than that, there's a price for everybody. And the Falcons would be dumb not to entertain if somebody called and said, hey, we're willing to give you, a second and a third for Kyle Pitts. Hell yeah, you jump at that. You're probably never going to get a first round pick for him. But if somebody does call and say, hey, we'll give you our first round pick in 2026 for Kyle Pitts. All right, do you want him on American, United, or Delta? Right? Like, how do you want us to deliver him to you?
Oh, man. I mean, look, I can see a scenario, and I don't want to jump ahead to the topic. I can see a scenario, and people are going to think I'm crazy, where someone offers us a first for Kirk, but I can't see it for Pitts. And maybe that I'm being a little optimistic as a Falcons fan, but it has been done before, and we will get in those precedents.